Hello students, this is the final chapter overview video for the semester. We're going to be focusing on chapter 14, Bridging the Divide Towards Interculturality, which is ultimately the goal of this text and the goal of our semester. And so it begins by trying to define cultural competence. This is a term that is used often in our field. We're expected to be culturally competent and kind of achieve that by graduation, by the time we're licensed, and have that as we move on in our careers. However, to begin with, cultural competence is something that has been really difficult to define. You kind of find similar definitions around in the literature, but it's a really difficult construct to define. And as we get into the next section, it talks about cultural competence as academic racism. Essentially, one, it has been taught in ways that really play on stereotypes of different identities and different cultures and religions and things like that. But also, it kind of makes it seem like cultural competence is something that we achieve this certain level of. We are either culturally competent or we're not. And it makes it seem like we reach a level of cultural competence and we suddenly know everything and there's nowhere left to go. And that's just really not accurate. And that really is not a stance that we should hold because it prevents our continued growth, our continued learning. And so they bring up the idea of social constructionism and cultural competence, and how social constructionism really helps us to recognize that we may have a certain level of competency, a certain level of knowledge, but that we're always learning and growing, and there's always more to know. And um, you know, the more we interact with people and we take that sort of not knowing position and just have that professional curiosity about our clients and the people that we work with, can help us to continue to build that competency, but also help us to be competent in working with that specific individual or those specific individuals and with which we're working. And this brings us to the topic of culture of humility and ways in which we should be approaching situations with a level of humility, recognizing that we don't know everything and that there's always places to grow. And that, while our clients shouldn't be educating us in the sense that they should be teaching us these different things, but that we should be curious about our clients and learn from them the way that these different constructs and things impact them and their experiences, which may be different than other people who hold very similar or the same identities as they do. Um, you know, the textbook then gets into institutional humility and psychopolitics, which says the selection of the three main areas of cultural competence: awareness, knowledge, and skills, leaves out that level of humility at the institutional level, involving self-reflection and self-critique. And so hopefully one thing that you will walk away from this semester is learning how to have an increased level of self-awareness, recognizing our own areas of bias and where we're coming from in our perspectives, and identifying the areas that we need to continue to work on and our areas of growth and doing something about it. On that same page, 412, it has a little breakout box on advocacy, which we talked about this semester, the advocacy competencies. And so that might be one to kind of look back on and consider at this point in the semester versus, when we may have looked at some of that in the beginning of the semester. It gets back into the idea of modern and colonial systems of power and the way that they continue to really play a part. Again, as we've talked about this semester, um, the Eurocentric perspective, with which our field has been founded on. And so it has a section called Dangers of Centering European Counseling Practices. And again, it's something that you hopefully have picked up this semester, but we really want to kind of continue to drive that point home. The recognition that the number of individuals who actually utilize counseling services is very small, much smaller than what we would hope for, and that again it does tend to be very Eurocentric, and so how can we continue to promote counseling in different cultures and identities and make it more appropriate for them. So not them, acculturating to the Eurocentric view of counseling, but how do we make counseling more appropriate for all different individuals? Talks about the idea of morality and privilege, and so the moral decision making. Again, we learn about the decision making models through ACA and other authors, and how can we make sure that we're making ethical decisions with regard to different cultures and identities, and not kind of using that cookie cutter view of how we should ethically behave with all clients, because it can look a little bit different from one client to another. I mean, there are obvious things that will always be ethical issues that are absolute no's or absolute yeses, but in many cases it's really going to depend. And then finally, again, the crux of this textbook in the semester is moving from multicultural competency towards interculturalism, and what that looks like, and how we can do that. The ways that interculturality and can connect with improving democracy overall, and then has a nice sort of conclusion to the chapter with then a response from an academic on it. And so that rounds out the text for the semester. Again, this is the first semester I've used this text. I've actually really, really loved it, and I hope that you have as well. I hope that it has helped you this semester, but also helps you to continue to move forward as counselors, growing and working towards some level of cultural competency, and recognizing, having that humility to recognize that we don't suddenly become, competent and that's it. Our learning ends, but just learning and growing with each and every client that we work with. Um, Again, any questions or anything, feel free to let me know, even moving beyond the semester. Um, and I guess I am going to be seeing you all next semester in human sexuality. And so I look forward to diving into that material with you as well. Thank you.